Hi, I'm Katie.
And I'm Amy, and this is Monumental, a small show about the big things God does in the lives of ordinary people.
If you caught last week's episode, you know that this is the second part in our November adoption series for Adoption Awareness Month.
Last week, Pastor Max Curell and his wife Annie talked about 3 aspects of adoption: why it's an important calling for believers, and how the church should think about it.
So this week, they've come back to tell us their story of adopting their daughter, Allie.
And next week, Allie will join us to share her story of being adopted and how God used that in her life for good.
So why did you guys decide to adopt?
We wanted a baby. No, we wanted another child. We had a son. I found out from the doctor, or a doctor told me that I probably wouldn't be able to have more children. Obviously he was wrong because we ended up having another child biologically, but we thought we wouldn't be able to have more children, and we wanted more than one child. Mm-hmm. And that's really, that is the reason why we adopted.
Where did did you all have teaching on, basic fruitfulness or anything of the sort? Or was it just like, we just want more kids? Why didn't you just stop with one and be like, well, this is what God gave us one?
We wanted more children. I can't remember anyone teaching about fruitfulness. Lots of people taught about barrenness, but nobody was teaching about fruitfulness. So we just desired more children.
That simple.
Yeah, not complicated.
Yeah.
So I think this happens with women sometimes when they have babies. So when you're in labor, you're like, I don't ever want to do this again. Mm-hmm. This was awful. I never want to experience this again. And then, so that's what happened to me. I'm in labor. I'm looking at Dave frantically. I don't ever want to do this again. And then
I think it was more of a pronouncement. We're never doing
We will never do this again. And then Ben is born.
They put him in her arms.
And I'm just like, I'm ready for it. Let's do this again.
The quote is, let's have another one.
You would remember that.
You were like, well, that was fast.
And he's probably thinking, I don't know, after watching you go through all that.
You each changed your minds.
And then our next one was Allie, the adopted child, which God blessed us with. So,
well, if you think about it, that is the perfect way to illustrate the scripture that says that the moment the baby is born, the labor is forgotten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, how else do you explain that than just motherhood?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things that happened just before we started to pursue adopting was that there was a famous case in the state of Michigan. And at that time, we were living in Ohio, just across the border. But we ended up adopting our daughter, our oldest daughter, Allie. We adopted her in the state of Michigan. And Michigan had just had a famous case where a young girl had been adopted by a couple, and she had lived with the couple, I think, as their daughter for 6 years. I think she was 6 years old. And just before we adopted, the state, there was a challenge to a paternity challenge, because the biological father had not signed off on the adoption. Mm-hmm. And the state took that child of 6 years old from the parents who had been raising her, and they placed her back in the home of her biological father. Mm. Now, I don't want to make a judgment on what the state should have done. Those kinds of things are very difficult, which is part of the reason why the foster care system is so difficult, because of the state's desire to protect parental rights. We do want the state to protect parental rights. And so immediately, I think parents who were about to adopt in that state were terrified.
Terrified to do it, yeah.
That suddenly, who knows what will happen.
Yeah, that's like a worst nightmare right there.
And so that was part of it. Then when we did start the process, you have to wait through a period of time before there's a time for the biological parents to change their minds. You remember how long that was, Annie?
I think it was a month, but it had to be a good reason. Like it had to be maybe the birth mother found out she wasn't able to have any more children or something. It had to be, that's what they told us. It had to be a big reason. It couldn't be just, oh, I want my baby back.
Right.
But that was a time that was pretty, I felt like she was my baby that was on the best schedule. I made sure that all of her immunizations were gotten right on time. Just very careful about all those, any health things. I mean, I was like on top of it all the time because I was thinking, I don't want to give anybody reason to take this baby away from me, know.
But there was fear involved because
for a whole year, I think.
There was before everything was finalized. Wasn't it a year before everything was finalized?
How old was she when you got her?
4 days.
Okay.
So that was something that I think no matter how you go through the adoption process, there is some level of fear of the unknown.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like I said, I found out, the doctor said I most likely wouldn't be able to have any more children. Well, I wish I could say we had one son. I wish I could say I had some big theology for wanting another child, but I don't. I just wanted more children than one. I was very happy with one, just wanted more.
Yeah.
And so we had found out through Max's brother, who was a principal, that there was a girl who was pregnant in the school where he was a principal at in Michigan, and she was looking for someone to adopt their baby, and so we really were excited about that, and so we talked to him and told him we were definitely interested.
We were very excited.
And our whole family was excited.
I was going to ask
Both
about Ben.
sides,
What did Ben think? Because he was old enough to really
he had been praying for a baby for us.
Was he 8?
A sister or brother.
Was he 8 years old?
I think he was 6, maybe 7. We went through a process of, getting...
very quickly because she was already 7 months, 6 or 7 months.
Probably maybe 6, 7 months before we even found out. So we very quickly had to go through this, getting
paperwork,
all this paperwork, getting security things done.
Home
we had
studies.
to go through a home study. We had to go through some infant class, taking care of baby classes at the hospital. And so we just went through and did, we just checked the boxes. We did this, we did this, we did this, which, Katie, all the stuff we had to do. And I remember I was teaching at the time, full-time, at a school nearby, and the home study lady would come into our home several times, I think. Yeah. And the second time she came, I kept thinking, before she came, I kept thinking, should I tell her that I work full-time? Or should I tell her that once I have the baby, and once we get a baby, I'm not going to work full-time? Right. I didn't know what to do because I didn't know if she was a stay home with your child kind of woman or go for your career kind of woman. Right. And I just decided I was just going to be honest with her, which, of course, I'm going to be honest with her. So I told her that, and I told her I was working full-time and that after we had this child, I would, quit working soon after we had her. So she was very on board with that. But I just remember this fear of, I don't want to mess this up by telling her something she doesn't want to hear. So we went through the home studies, and then Allie was born. It was on a Sunday. We got this call that her birth mother was in labor, and we were praying. We knew she was a girl, which was exciting. And so we were starting to pack and get ready to go up to Michigan. And, I was just like really nervous. And we got the call. She was born. If you'd like to come and see her. So we drove up, saw her in the hospital, and also feeling honored to have this baby. Because when we went to visit, there's the mom holding her, the biological mom, the birth grandmother, and the birth great grandmother, all in the room, and they are letting us adopt this new baby, their first baby, grandbaby, great grandbaby. So it was pretty humbling. Pretty wow.
What a privilege and honor.
I remember thinking, okay, I have a room here for a nursery, but do I want to get my hopes up too much? Are they going to come crashing down?
Right.
It's a strange situation to be in. You want you have hope that you're going to have a baby, but yet, maybe not. How much do you prepare?
Right.
Yeah.
And
or even invest your own emotion and heart into this little person. That's got to be.
I mean, up to the time.
Yeah.
Where you get her, you go get her.
Right.
I think there are similarities, though, in births, biological births that happen with couples. If you think about it, there are differences because there are circumstances that are different and things that we perceive to be more out of our control that depend on a whole lot more decisions, where the rights of biological parents don't have to be concerned with those things typically, right? But there's still many, many couples who've experienced hopes dashed, hope deferred as they've had miscarriages and stillborn children and children who've died in early infancy, and it's horrible. It's difficult. And so there are similarities to some degree in the fears that can happen and things that can happen. But I think what happens is a lot of times, and I suppose moms who get pregnant often think and do have fears. I know I pray, typically in pastoral prayers, I pray for moms that they won't be afraid. I know that they do have fears, but I think we live in such a time where circumstances and death during pregnancies and death of infants has been so minimized that we just have presumptions. We assume that everything's going to be fine and there won't be any issue, right? So, but that's not guaranteed to anyone. So there are similarities, but they're different. And it seems like more things are out of your control. That's a lot of it.
Yes. Again, with her mother, her grandmother, which was really sobering. Like, wow, they really love this baby. So then we had to wait an amount of time to get to the adoption agency. So she was in a foster home for a few days. And then we went back up to Michigan to the adoption agency and got her. And the first thing I wanted to do was change her clothes. I don't know why that was such a big deal for me, but I wanted to take off those clothes and put on the clothes I wanted, her clothes that I bought for her.
Ownership of that,
Yeah, so we changed her. I remember changing her on the chair at the adoption agency.
Couldn't wait.
We went, got her, we had bottles and the necessities.
Right.
And we couldn't cross
For a month, was it?
No, for it was like 7 days or something. We couldn't go into Ohio from Michigan. We had to keep her in Michigan for a certain amount of time. So I stayed with Max's parents. And I think, Dave had to go back to work, or Max had to go back to work. And so he and Ben went back home. And then I stayed for a week then we met them and we took her home from there, which was really fun. And I remember taking a video of her up in Michigan with all the snow, and it was very sweet. So as a baby, she looked like Ben, and it was really kind of funny. She had blonde hair, blue eyes, just like Ben. So really, she looked like Ben's sister, biological sister.
Right.
And Ben just loved her, and we had a great time with her. And again, I was so careful about getting her immunizations. She was always at the perfect weight and height. And I was so glad that was just part of her.
Yeah.
You know, that
she didn't
just
struggle through. Yeah.
Right. She ate well. She didn't eat too much. She, it was really nice just to have those good records. For me, for my sake, for my peace of mind.
So there's lots of good and beautiful memories and times and funny things and things that we remember. I remember that she found out that if Ben had a Band-Aid on his arm or something, that if she poked it, he'd say, ouch, because usually there was something sore underneath. So that became one of her things to do. But she adored Ben, and, the sun rose and sat over Ben, really. At the same time, there were difficulties because, as I said before, children that you adopt have personalities, and often they're not like the personalities of your family. I think I was very naive. Maybe we both were naive about what it would be like to raise a child that we had adopted. And naive because I didn't realize how much your genetics play into your personality. But what you realize is that when you adopt a child, they have come genetically from someone else, and they have a lot of influence genetically from where they come from. And so their personality, right, there's a reason why adopted children want to know things about their biological parents. And there are things if they get to meet their biological parents, there are things that they get answered. That person laughs like I laugh, and they have the same kind of turn in their eye, and you know what I'm saying.
And the lips. I mean, I remember Allie saying, I've got lips like my aunt, or I don't know.
So you maintained contact with the family?
No, that actually happened quite a bit later when Allie was older. And so what you realize, and why I said I think I was naive, is that I did not realize that would be the case. I thought, it's all going to be environment.
She's going to grow up in
She's going to grow up, and it's just going to be, she's just going to laugh the same way and be the same way and have the same personality. Yeah. And the fact is that even within your own family and children that are born to you biologically, there's complete differences in their personalities, right? Yeah. And so that was something that was, I think, a big lesson for us to learn, a big shift in paradigm for us. We had to grow up and realize that wasn't what we thought it was, right? And then we could come back and care for Allie in the way that we ought to. But that sounds so easy as I said it that way. But poor Allie, she had to live through it, right? Because, you think, well, what's wrong with this child? Well, okay, that's her personality. She's being who she is, and that's not to discount sin. Right? Your children, adopted or biological, have sin. Right. But they also have personalities, and if you just don't have the slightest idea how to handle that kind of personality, okay. And so I remember saying to people, and I remember having, I don't remember the day, but I remember having the realization that, sometimes what frustrates me with Allie is not her behavior, that she's sinning. Sometimes what's frustrating me is her personality. Well, you can't discipline personality out of somebody, right? So you have to suddenly think how you're going to make room for a personality that's very different and fall in love with that personality.
Could
right?
you give an example?
She wanted to be in everything.
She was adventurous.
So so I didn't know how to handle her adventurous. We raised turkeys.
Right.
And I was going to slaughter the turkeys.
Yeah.
Well, she wanted to be right there and watch the She wanted to be right there and watch the slaughter.
I was telling her, honey, now, Daddy and Ben, they're going to go kill the turkeys, and
I didn't even want to watch the turkeys get slaughtered. And I was serious.
We'll stay in the house. And she's like, I want to go. I want to see it. She wanted to do everything anybody could do. So,
we're kind of easygoing folk.
yeah, we had, and when we moved to Michigan, we had a little farm, and there was a path in the woods that we would walk through. And I would, I'm the safe one.
Yeah.
I love to stay on the path.
Right.
Let's not go too far. Let's stay on the path, and she always wanted to go in it and, explore the woods.
Right.
And I'm like, don't go too far. Don't,
Yeah.
which is probably just typical of a mom. But she was adventurous. She would always she would always want to try new foods, the odd, strange things on the, that are on the buffet.
Right.
She would go for those and say, I ate that, One thing that was very interesting, because I'm a very slow moving person, slow moving. So Max always says I have two speeds, slow and
Max
slower.
is shaking his head.
He's shaking his head, yes. Allie is quick. And she's, I just remember when you were talking about differences, and it's not really a personality, but it is kind of. She was quick with her hands. So I remember one time she reached down and grabbed a mouse that was running in the field. She reached down and grabbed it. She was so quick. And anytime we had chickens when we lived in Michigan, anytime I needed somebody to catch the chickens, it was Allie. She was not.
She was adventurous.
Fearless. She was fearless. She'd grab those chickens up and then I also remember she was quick with her hands and learning piano. She loved piano. She would take piano lessons when we lived in Michigan, and her piano teacher was always amazed that at a young age she would play the piano and sing. And she would always want to, at her recital, to play the piano and sing. And I was just amazed at her talent, because I took piano for 10 years. We were just talking about this, and never learned how to play. And she could play wonderfully as a child, and sing. And I could never sing in front of people.
I think the other reality that was happening in the young years, her young years, or in our family, was the reality of how do you communicate to a child that they're adopted. And I had heard horror stories. I had an older friend growing up who found out that she was adopted on the playground when some girl told her in the, fourth grade or something.
Yeah.
And, that's like about as horrible as you can imagine. And so, we did what we thought we should do. We got a book that you sat on your coffee table back when people had coffee tables, and it was just there.
Right. Available, yeah.
And you once in a while you would refer to, I don't know, what did we say? The special way that we had her or something.
I remember you holding her and kissing her and holding her and saying, "You're my sweet adopted baby."
Yeah, we just tried to make her familiar with the word.
Right. Yeah.
I guess when she was very young.
Talk about it, be natural about it.
Right.
At the same time, the reality was, it seemed to be, even from infancy, that there were realities about what Allie knew in terms of her biology. So today they talk about attachment disorders and attachment. Well, we don't have any diagnosis or anything. I say that there was a reality as she was growing up that she loved us. We loved her, but often it was very difficult for her to tether, to moor, as a boat would moor to the dock. It was difficult for her to tether. We noticed it. It's normal. I mean, the famous thing that every adopted child says to their parents at one point is, "You're not my parents. You're not my mother. You're not my father." Right? They all say that at some point or other. And but at the same time, there was just this evidence of a difficulty making the connection, right? And that was a difficult part of our lives together because we didn't know how to make that connection for her. I mean, we did the things we thought we should do. And as time goes on, we learned more. As time goes on, things were better. And then we skip ahead. We got into teenage years, and then all of the teenage realities hit. Well, then the teenage realities are compounded.
Yeah, I mean, those are hard anyway.
Yeah, they're difficult anyway, but they're compounded by things that answers that want to be had.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot about
It's when
identity.
they want to find out who their biological parents are. That's when that starts to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then the question of mooring and connection becomes more difficult.
Yeah.
There was a way in which Allie, I think, was more moored to us than our other children.
Yeah.
And there was a way in which she wasn't. Where we couldn't make the connection.
How was she more so?
Well,
children?
because we went through so much.
Well, I think you tried to hold on to them tighter because you can't presume.
Right.
A biological child, you just presume.
Right.
Oh, okay. You don't. It's not even a conscious thought with a biological child as to whether or not you're connected to them. It's not conscious.
Right.
But if you have an adopted child, it's a conscious thought, which is what I think is important to say. Because one thing that's important to say is that when you adopt a child, that reality can play against you, because that conscious thought of whether or not, how you're connected and all those kinds of things can end up causing you to not be faithful in the care. We sinned lots and failed lots with Allie because we were afraid. Rather than just doing what we should have done and having faith for it, just like we would have done with any of the other children. The fact was that it was like it happened with fear. Oh my! But she's adopted. You end up thinking, okay, we've got to treat them carefully because they're adopted. If they've got this poor, difficult situation that they've got to deal with.
And then
that doesn't do them any favors. That's my point. They sense the tension, and it ends up helping you, or you often will make bad decisions because of it, and you won't do the things with faith that you ought to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's something that's important to think about with adopting children, is that you have to raise them with faith, and you have to remember that you're bound to them in some ways because you're conscious of it, stronger than you're bound to your biological children. Now you're not. You are and you're not. I mean, you're bound to both of them.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yes. Yeah.
But because you're conscious of it, it's in front of you. And then I think that's part of the reason why it's so beautiful that adoption is the picture God gives us of how he lays hold of us. Because then we become conscious of the fact that God has taken us to himself, and he's conscious of us as his sons, right? Taking us to himself and having us as his children, and us having him as our father. And it's a beautiful picture.
It's the gospel constantly in front of you.
Yeah. But then, hopefully as an adopted child, that's something that you get full realization of as you come and have faith in God. Yeah. That's what you're hoping for adopted children.
And you have to have, I don't know how to say it, but thick skin. You have to be kind of tough, because emotional things will, especially for me, wanted to pull me different ways, make me maybe just paralyzed, or not to be faithful in discipline, or so I remember a time when I was washing Allie's hair. She was I don't know how old she was, probably 4-ish. She was in the tub. I would wash her hair, and then she'd finish her bath, and then, because she had long blondish hair. And so I was washing her hair, and she was looking up at me and saying, "I hate you. You are not my mom." And she would just kept saying that. And I just remember crying and crying. But I washed her hair, and then got her dried off. I went in our room and just bawled. Mm-hmm. But I remember that also that gave me just some determination of I can't let my emotions just totally rule me. Mm-hmm. This is my daughter. Mm-hmm. And I have to take care of her. And even if she doesn't understand it right now, mm-hmm. I have to love her through this. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we sat down with her, and I remember Max telling her, "You can't say that anymore. Mm-hmm. You just can't. It's mm-hmm. not true. Mm-hmm. She is your mother. Mm-hmm. This is your mother."
Mm-hmm. So she needed your confidence in claiming and telling her, "No, I am."
Yeah, and I don't remember her ever doing something, saying something so hurtful again. Mm-hmm. I'm sure she said some hurtful things like any child, would do in anger, possibly. But I just remember that having, just asking God, give me strength for this because I am emotional and I need to go beyond that and not let my emotions rule me. Mm-hmm. So I just remember that as a really definite point in raising Allie. When she's, I think my mom's just sitting there waiting for me. She's thinking about how she looks. What does my birth mom look like? And I had to be strong. I could have just said, "Oh, it doesn't matter," but I had to tell her what I knew. Right. What her birth mom looked like when I saw her, and just tell her what I knew, and try to give her hope that maybe someday you'll meet her. Yeah. And try to work with
I think that's an important thing is that a child that's adopted, even if you feel insecure as a parent that adopts a child, you have to live and not allow yourself to be threatened by that. Mm-hmm. You can acknowledge it, right? I remember when there was awkward times surrounding Allie's meeting of her biological father, and I knew she felt awkward, and I felt awkward. Mm-hmm. So I just said to her one day, let me just say, I know you feel awkward, and I feel awkward. It's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. I'm okay. It's going to be all right. Mm-hmm. Because a child in that situation is feeling like, am I betraying my parents? Yes. What am I doing? Right? Mm-hmm. And it really is the point where I think we should stop our story, because I got just about up now to the teenage years. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think at this point, we didn't really talk about this, but I think actually at this point it would be a good time for Allie to take on the story. Okay. She could talk about her childhood a little bit, but this is the part where it gets very tumultuous. And then
a lot out of our hands, really.
And then also the part of greatest resolution in the long run, right? There was spiritual resolution between Allie and God, and that was beautiful. And simultaneously, there was also a miraculous mooring. And it happened when she was 19 years old. And I mean, it was so miraculous that, overnight, Annie and I would look at one another and say, who is this? We didn't even know. It was like, what happened here? We can't explain this at all. Wow. Because it was that different. It was night and day. Wow. And since that time, with ups and downs, it's just been a very sweet. And now she has 4 little boys and a husband who's taking care of them and who's also a believer.
And we're Mama and Papa. I was just talking to Kimmy, our youngest daughter, and she was asking me, where are you going? And I said, we're going to go and talk about, they're going to record us and we're going to talk about adoption. She's like, really? I said, yes. And she said, she was asking questions that, I assume she knew the answer to. But she was asking, so why did you have me after you adopted Allie? Why did you decide to have another baby? Why did you have me? It was just kind of interesting. And all it made me think of was that God has a plan for everyone. And it's just neat and amazing to look back and see God's plan in all of the things that happened. I didn't think I could have more children. We adopted Allie. I did have another child, but that was God's plan. Yeah. He wanted us to adopt Allie. That was the plan. Yeah. He wanted us to have a child before and a child after. And so just to see God working and then what's in store.
Monumental is hosted by Katie Walker and Amy Molina. It is produced and edited by Katie Walker, and it is executive produced by Nathan Alberson and Jake Menzel. If you like the show, please don't forget to rate and review in the app of your choice. And if you're interested in more great content, including articles and other podcasts, please visit warhornmedia.com.